Hello, everybody. My name is Gabriel Hirschberger, and I'm the host of the 20 Mile March podcast. I'm super excited today, but you can tell by how animated my voice is. I have Andy Burgess, a Snapchat, Instagram filmmaker, and storyteller with me today. He creates cinematic stories of his day and his adventures. So thank you so much, Andy, for joining me today.
Hey, dude, no worries. Thank you for having me. This is so much fun. I love a good podcast. I love a good discussion and conversation. So very excited to be here.
Congrats on being a finalist for the Shorty Awards.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit surreal. Yeah, it's a real honor.
Do you think you're going to win?
No. I'm up against such like incredible people. I'm up like against Chrissy Teigen, Georgia Copter. It's so humbling just to be like nominated for it and then
Yeah.
to make the final six. So I actually haven't even thought about winning. It's kind of not in the right. I mean, I guess there is like there's 1 in 6 chance I'm gonna win, but you know, I'm just excited to be nominated, excited to be going. And yeah, that's good enough for me.
There's a good chance, 1 in 6. Those are good odds. Do you know any of those other? Do you keep in touch with any of those other finalists, like Laura Porlongo or Ross Smith or Spencer Pratt or any of those guys? You know?
So I know Giorgio.
Yeah.
I know Giorgio well. We've collabed together before in the past.
Mm,
I haven't. I follow the other guys. But it's going to be exciting to meet them. But I've never worked or seen them before, which is really cool because there's like a lot of Snapchatters who I know, who I've worked with. So it's always cool to see new people. And we can like hopefully like all get on and geek out. It should be fun.
yeah, and learn new things from them, and like just because I checked some of them out, and everybody has a really different approach from
Hmm.
Spencer has his grandma, I think, in a lot of his, or is it Ross Smith has a lot of his
Ross,
grandma
yeah.
has it in his program, in his snaps, and Giorgio, of course, has his like animations and his drawings, which are like, oh my
They're
gosh,
so good. They're
another
so good.
level, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
They're all and I think they've all been at it for so long. I've been doing it like 2 years. I feel like the new guy has just come in. Giorgio has been at it for at least four years, just like killing it.
Yeah, you blew up really fast. I mean, for 2017, you did Snap every day, right? That
Yes.
was the goal.
Yeah.
How first off, how did you even decide to come up with that idea? Like, where did that come from?
I don't know. It wasn't really meant to be like a daily thing. Like obviously, like for like 2017, 2016, daily vlogs were like a big thing, right, on YouTube. Everyone was kind
Yeah.
of doing them and going for it. And yeah, at the beginning of 2017, I moved to New York, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna Snapchat. I basically left my job in the UK to kind of move to New York and pursue like creating content. And so I was like, okay, I have the time every day to make a story, to make a full story. So I essentially took it like that, and I was like, okay, I'll just do every day in New York. And then it just went so well. And then 3 months later, it just continued. And I kept going, and then I was like, "Oh, well, now I've been going for so long. What I've got to hit a year." And it was more I just loved waking up every single day and being able to make a new story, having no idea the story I was going to tell. The morning could be very stressful, working out what I was going to do. But by the end of the day, I had this new piece of work that I was just done, and it was finished. It was a new film. And I continued it on until the end of the year. And then because as the year got on, I got busier, more work started coming in. It was harder. I was staying up later and sleeping
Yeah.
less, trying to balance everything.
hmm
So now I just try to do it a couple of times a week.
hmm hmm So sounds like you have a little bit of a process. Like in the morning, you will kind of create some kind of story or outline. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, of course. Well, I always try to. I feel like it got better throughout the year, right? Like
Of
my
course.
snaps from January 2017 to December 2017, like it's so different. But
Yeah.
as the year went on, I was developing my storytelling, and I guess it started off as like just a daily kind of vlog story, whatever you want to call it, of just like what was happening throughout my whole day, and I was just trying to make it a bit cinematic and a bit different on Snapchat. But then I was like, okay, why don't I just hone in on one thing in particular? So what I would do, I'll wake up and I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to focus my story around this specific topic, or this is what I'm going to do. And then I'll share a bit of a backstory on it, actually what's going to happen, and then like wrap it all up. So people kind of know to hone in. It's going to focus on one thing. Maybe there'll be a few other elements throughout my day, but there's like one narrative to it. And I found that worked best. So every day I would sometimes I would have it in mind. If I had nothing really planned, I'd like that, because it was more of a challenge to see what I can do.
Right. Yeah, that would be, but having that one narrative then gave you focus and gave the audience a focus too. Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense too. And so, I saw on your Instagram and stuff that you met Gary V. How awesome is that?
Yes.
What was it like to meet him?
Oh man, that was. Have you met him before?
No, my gosh, I would love to. My gosh,
it's an experience, man. It's so when he came in, actually I'll give a bit of context of what I was doing, where I was, for the people listening. So he has just launched his new book, Crushing It, and he's got these pop-up shops for these sneakers that he's put together with K-Swiss. So it was like a launch for that in London. And so he was doing this book launch and the shoe launch, and he was doing a signing, and he combined it. And I got invited by the guys at VaynerMedia to come down early, and he was doing a podcast there actually with a couple of footballers. And we were just invited to come in, film it for our socials, and then like get to talk to him. And just when he arrives, like he has a way of just making everyone in the room feel so welcome. Before he started, he was in a rush. He turned up late, but he made an effort to say hello to every single person before he sat down and got going. And then he just makes it very easy for you to talk to. It's very intimidating. I'm like, I've seen this guy for ages. Like, I want to talk to him, and all these things. But yeah, he was just really welcoming, really humble. Yeah, just a great dude. It was a really cool experience.
Have you read his new book, Crushing It?
I have not. I haven't. I guess I'm
just about finished. Yeah.
Oh yeah, is it good?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's great.
Oh, dude, I need to pick up a copy. I think I'm following his whole thing. Like maybe 2015, 2016, I was very much in the Gary V like ecosystem. I got Jab Jab Jab. I was reading. I think Ask Gary V. The book had just come out. Reading all of that and implementing it, and then I kind of dived out and just went and started, as he would say, executing on that, or just like trying to do my thing. And the beginning of this year has been very much like that. I've been just doing, and I just haven't had time to sit down and pick up a copy and read anything. But I really want to. So I didn't feel too bad about it, but I know it's something I really want to.
Well, the audiobook just came out in
okay,
right? So
okay, that I'm in.
It, right?
100% in. Reading for me, I'll do like I don't really read, but I read his books. But if I can get the audio, and if the audiobook's out now, I'm getting it after this podcast. I'm in.
Yeah. So do you make your living from Snapchat stories?
So not like necessarily just making these stories, but what I do, like creating content. Yes. So, I refer to myself, I guess, as a content creator and storyteller. So that's either making stories for brands or in collaboration with brands. And then there's a lot of sort of consulting for brands or like contracted work in other freelance video. Because it's not like people like it's hard, you know, like to make a living these days. But I'm just thankful that I get to do it in video and what I love. So I'm very fortunate to be able to talk about it all the time and work with people on it. So and it's very cool. Like I really enjoy it.
Yeah. I know you've worked with Forbes, NASDAQ, College Humor, and Soul Pancake, and there's probably that's a short list. There's probably a lot more than that. Could you give like an example of one of your, favorite things that you've done for one of them, or like just so that you were the guy behind it that would have maybe seen it, and like what it might look like, for example, with someone who's not sure what it might you do for them.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, I guess there's two ways that brands work with creators. And I guess the first is like a traditional like influencer campaign or a paid ad, um, where a brand will like kind of come to you and they're like, hey, can you promote this on your channel or talk about this product and your experience with it. And then there's the way that I like to genuinely, the way I go about it a bit more is I like to create content on a brand's channel for them at I like the quality or the caliber of what I'm making. Um, so a recently I worked with Free, who are a phone network company over here in the UK, and it was to launch of the new S9, the new
Hmm.
Samsung phone. So, and I guess this was kind of a bit on both sides of the field I was playing here. They basically asked me to create a whole story using their new camera because they have it's meant to have the best low light capability on a camera, and
Hmm.
Samsung projected this rainbow over the Thames in London. So I
Hmm.
made a story on their account about what it just like showing off the camera itself, and then on my account I made a sort of a more in-depth look at the camera, like, and what I thought about it, and shared it.
Hmm.
And that was really fun. That was really cool. It was an
Yeah.
interesting experience because I don't work on Android usually. So
Hmm.
getting used to a new camera and stuff was really fun. Um, but then brands like Forbes, you mentioned, I've had some really cool
Sorry to
experience.
interrupt, but I remember that story, and I remember that one, and I'm actually the way that you pulled it off on your own story. It didn't even feel like that was you were working with a brand or sponsored really as much. It seemed more like, oh, cool, like they gave you the phone to try out because of the low light capabilities, and you were excited about using it. And I think the authenticity and the genuineness is super powerful, and young people can pick that up right away and
Yeah,
will turn off. But I didn't tell honestly until you mentioned it right now. I didn't know at all. So like that's a great
nice.
approach.
But yeah, and it's cool. And I think I would always approach it in a way that I'll only work with a brand if I like the product that that they're asking me to promote or work with. So in that sense, they were like, "Hey, do you want an S9 phone? It has this amazing low light camera, and I've heard such good things about their cameras." I was like, "Of course!" It's like,
Hmm.
give it to me, let me try it out. Yeah, so and I think it worked really well, and it was really cool, and it was actually a funny experience. So they also asked me to make an Instagram post for them, like to go on their feed, and then they were going to be sharing, and they were going to be promoting that as an ad and putting it like over all their platforms in the UK. And it was essentially me holding the S9, and the camera zooms into the phone, and then you see the image on the screen, and it's what the photo I took, and then it zooms back out.
Yep.
But I was at a couple of events a week later, and three different people came up to me and they're like, "Hey, are you the guy from that advert?" I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And they're like, "Yeah," and I was just like, "Oh wow, that's odd." Um,
Uh-huh. Stardom. Soon you're gonna have paparazzi after you.
oh, I don't know if it's at that level, but it was just funny. I was like, "Oh wow," from that ad, and like I haven't seen it in my feed, but yeah, a lot of people were talking about it. But yeah, that's a
That's
fun,
cool.
and that's a really good example of I guess a brand that it went really well, and I was really
Yeah.
excited to work with them.
Hmm. So influencer marketing, it seems
Mhm.
like there's an opportunity for a lot of brands, and there's more, you could say that more could be doing it and leveraging the power of it. And
Mhm.
what's your feelings about influencer marketing, since you're, into deep into it and you're influencer yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of have mixed feelings on it. I really don't like the word influencer.
Okay,
Like
why is that?
Um, I feel like it's overused. People say that, oh, you're an influencer because you have X amount of followers on a platform, whereas I feel some platforms, maybe like Facebook, you can have like views, can sometimes just be a 3 second scroll through, like someone scrolling through their Facebook feed slowly, and the views mount up, and you get these, and then I think influence is a word that it's like you're having an effect on someone, and you're making someone, you're actually like changing someone's perception, or you're helping them through something. And sometimes I feel like it's people use it, and it's their, maybe they have a huge following, but do they bring that much influence with them? And I feel like it's just thrown around a bit too much. But I totally understand, like, and I like the concept of how brands go, because people know when they're being sold to. No one watches TV adverts anymore.
Right.
You go to your phone, and even adverts on Facebook, everyone knows that you're kind of being sold to. But if you're promoting a product, or I'm watching someone on YouTube that I really like, and then they're talking about I was just watching a Sarah Dietschy video, who's a really cool tech YouTuber from New York, and she was talking about a Sony camera that she uses, and she was like, oh, this video is also sponsored by Sony. And for me, I'm like, awesome, because I'm learning more about this camera. I subscribe to you for this content, so it works really well. So like, I think that's really great. And then there's also brands that I guess don't do it so well, and they kind of reach out to anyone and like, hey, will you promote this? We'll give you this amount of money. And then, I don't know, sometimes you may then get an ad that doesn't seem genuine to the creator, or it seems very forced, and you're like, why are you ramming this this weird like app download? Why should I be checking this out? It doesn't really make any sense in it. So brands that are doing it, the brands that do it well, it's incredible. And I think everyone should be doing it, but they should be doing it in the right way, and like targeting the creator they're going for, better than sort of reaching for the masses.
Mm-hmm. And there should be a nice match or marriage between the influencer, even though I'm going to use that word even though you don't like it.
No.
With the product, that there's a bit of synergy there. Like for you, the Samsung phone, there's synergy there. It really works well. It'd be weird if you're promoting a shoe or something like that, or like, I don't know, but maybe, but see, you drink a lot of coffee, so you probably could pull off a coffee brand. You do have like ride around on your skateboard, and so you could get away with probably that too. But okay, like let's say a new Mercedes-Benz like commercial like car,
for sure,
that would be weird.
Yeah, exactly. And I think even to an extent, I mean, I know a lot about skateboards, and I could talk about one, but I don't even know if I would necessarily take it, because I don't consider myself a skater. Or if I started talking about this product a bit more, I don't know. I feel like my audience aren't necessarily watching me for skateboarding, you know? So, but I know, I totally get what you mean.
How do you film and ride the skateboard and go across those like the cobbled like sidewalks and stuff? Like, I'm like, what? I get so scared that someday you're gonna just, eat it.
Yeah. That's why I do love riding a skateboard, because the shots you can get are great. Two ways. I attach my phone to my Joby Gorilla Pod, and I hold it upside down, and then I have my phone is like hanging upside down attached to it, and then I like hang it down by my feet, and I shoot at like 120 frames per second, and then in post I'll flip the video, and then you get this really cool low angle shot. So yeah, I like to just like see the different angles I get with a skateboard. It's fun.
That's great. So how many views are your Snapchat stories getting?
So like daily, it's around like 8,000 to 10,000 views a day.
That's interesting. It's kind of, I bet that feels kind of crazy to imagine like 8,000 to 10,000 people. Like how many in a movie theater? How many people sit in a movie theater, right? In a big one, like 500. Like in a regular theater, and here you have 8,000 to 10,000, right? I mean, it's just interesting.
It does. It is mind-boggling. I've never really looked at it as like I've never really thought about it like that too much. I mean, I always look at it in the sense of I always push how much I enjoyed Snapchat and stories because you can't see how many followers you have, but you see how many people are viewing your story. And on Snapchat, you have to physically go in, find that person, tap it, and choose to watch them. They've kind of brought back autoplay now, but generally you have to go in and choose to watch that person. So even if you have 100 views, even if you're just getting 100 views on your story, it's 100 people who have chosen to go in and watch that. And I feel like that's way more powerful than sort of saying like you could have like, I don't know, a million Twitter followers, but not a million people are seeing your tweet or engaging with it.
Yeah,
Which I think is really awesome about stories is seeing that you actually have that person's attention span. So when I started out and I was like, oh, wow, I have 50 views or like 100 views. I'm like, and I don't even have friends on this platform. So I guess people must be interested in some sort of way in what I'm doing. And kind of went from there.
Yeah, that's what do you think of like I know the new design has been out for quite a while now.
Yeah.
I've gotten used to it in a way. And like on the discovery side, I kind of like I got my few people that show up first that aren't friends of mine directly, and so I have to find them on the side panel. And I've found a few more influencers that way that I didn't know of. And then when I get to like the content that I don't really want to like, be like National Geographic or something like that, or Wall Street Journal, then I'm just just skipping, skip. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm kind of done then with the Snapchat for the time being. Then I kind of close the app because at some point it's just stuff I'm not interested in.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm kind of mixed on it. I like the Discover layout, how it looks. I don't like what it shows me. And I know they say it's like an algorithm and it kind of changes. So a lot of the time I hold down and I click the show less button. So I'm just seeing the people I want to follow. But a lot of the creators I like watching, I am friends with. So they kind of show up on the left-hand side in the chat.
Yeah.
And my chat is full of messages. And right now I can't see the difference. And I know they're bringing in like a new tab that you can switch between stories and chat, which will help. But I do, yeah. And like a couple of people have it. It's rolling out to certain users, but
nice.
I'm looking forward to that. But I like the Discover kind of idea of it, but I feel like what I see is oversaturated with content I don't really want to be consuming.
So what do you think about this? Goes back to a little while ago when Instagram added stories and basically modeled that right after Snapchat. And then I think some of the people saw their engagement higher on Instagram because they had bigger following, and they sort of left the Snapchat or platform, or just put a lot less energy into it. Zuckerberg's a smart guy, brilliant guy, right? So he knows how to, like, he understands attention, and bought Snapchat, Instagram up for $1 billion, and Gary Vee was like, oh, that's a steal. I mean, and it really looks that way, So right. So what is that? How does that feel for you? Because you're such a dedicated to the Snapchat platform.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to. I guess I haven't even like branded myself as a Snapchatter in like the last year. I kind of try to be over both platforms. My attention has definitely been more on Snapchat because that's where I have a bigger audience. That's where my audience was when Instagram kicked in. That was when Instagram stories kicked in, it was kind of when I was just starting out on Snapchat, which is quite funny to think. But my my audience didn't really drop. And in the last like 6 months, I have been sort of trying to push people over to Instagram, but it's definitely not the same. And I'm trying, I feel like Snapchat, I can do my daily stories. I put them up there. I know what I'm doing. Instagram, I have it's a chore working out what to do on Insta. For a long time in the feed, I was posting photos that were like mainly of myself because they did better, but I didn't necessarily want to be doing that. I just was like, everyone's like, oh, you have to post every single day, otherwise you're not going to show up in the algorithm and all this kind of stuff. But my 2018 approach is very much less consistency. No, not consistency. Sorry. Less quantity, but more quality.
Yeah.
So I have I haven't posted on my feed in like a week and a half. And part of me is like, oh, I need to put something up. But at the same time, I'm like, I want it to look good. And I'm thinking of all these different ideas I want to do with my feed and how I want it to look. But I like using the stories feature all the time. And I'm trying to work out how to use them both in a different way. So when I go on a big trip, I normally post daily on Snapchat, and then I do a sort of overall a bigger story on Instagram. And that's been really working for me. It kind of gets more people to come over to Instagram when they want to see something. But then my Instagram is kind of like, oh, I want people to think, oh, he's posted on Instagram. Like, I'm going to watch it because it's going to be something decent. It's going to be of a certain quality. So I like to make some more like high produced stuff there on Instagram. The features they have are great. So I love working with them both. Snapchat has some like great advantages and then Instagram has other ones. So trying to play with them both, but balancing is kind of hard sometimes.
Yeah, it is hard. And you are like your editing, your stories are amazing pieces. Great quality. Your feed's beautiful. But it's interesting. What I noticed is that you said the opposite thing that what Gary says, and not that Gary's God or anything like that, but he says to document, don't create.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you're saying basically, I would rather create high quality rather than just posting as much of stuff every day. And so I think, there's lots of different approaches. It's interesting, though, to hear you sort of say, hold on, Gary, I'm going to do it this way.
I think it depends on who you are and what you do. For someone like Gary or someone running a business or an entrepreneur who doesn't necessarily, who isn't in that creative head, but they're doing all this amazing stuff. I think what he does is perfect. I love being able to watch it. So he's documenting his entire life, and people can see that, and I think that works. In my head, I'm now wanting to, because I did the whole documenting thing, I guess every day, I would try and keep the quality as high as possible. But now I feel like in my creative head, I'm just like, I want to post stuff that's consistently great, like that I really like. And I was able to do that every day last year. But especially like on my Instagram feed, I want people to look at it and be like, oh, okay, they're caught by it straight away. So I think for more creatives, like being a bit more quality is something that we're all like, oh, it's got to be like this. Like, but to a lot of people, how their Instagram feed looks like aesthetically is not a big deal. It's just like, oh, I'm just posting and growing, and that also works too. But as a creator, I kind of want to stick by the approach I have. Rather than documenting every day. But I totally understand why he does it and why people should do it. And like, I guess depending on the field you're in and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I know some people really like the aesthetics of having, when their Instagram has that 9x9 grid, and it's just like just certain people colors and layout and all that stuff. Like,
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I wish mine was like that. Hopefully it's gonna be.
It takes a lot of work though. And it's, there's some limitations as well to constantly be playing in that. If you want to have like a checkerboard content where I have like a quote here that's a certain color scheme and then a picture of something in my life, and then it alternates, so you get this nice little mosaic kind of right there, like a quilt pattern. But that means that like, if I see something, I have to like make sure that I plan ahead and think about it, and like I'm not good at that. I'm kind of like
And like that's not how Instagram's kind of built to be. You just want to post it on the go when you like. That's probably why I haven't posted in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, because I'm like, well, I don't really think that's gonna fit with what I want to put. But last year I would have been like, okay, we'll just put up a photo with me and it'll do fine. I recently took a trip to Helsinki and we took so many photos. And me and my friend Alex spent a good few hours just like trying to sort out how we want Offbeat to look. Just like two creators in a room, probably going a bit crazy at 3 a.m. Like, yeah, this is really great. And in our head, we're like, awesome. Maybe we're thinking about it too much. I don't know.
Well, you are, on a finalist for the Shorty Awards, so like you're doing something right. Um, so anyway, there's somebody also who I've got connected to through, well, actually, I found her first. It was Ginny, Virginia Salas Castillo, just
Yes.
Castillo. And then how do you know her and how did you, because she recommended you. And so that's how I discovered you. And yeah,
Oh, okay. Very cool. Yeah, I actually saw her today. We had lunch.
awesome.
Um, how did I meet Ginny? I met Ginny maybe like end of 2016. She lived in London.
Hmm.
She invited me down. We did like a collab. Um, and then we stayed in touch. And then last year we were roommates for like half a year. Um, and yeah, it was just really cool living with like another creator, like always making content, always had people around our house. I was introduced to a lot of people. We went on a lot of trips around the world together. Yeah, so that was really cool. And she now lives in Italy. She's doing her thing over there, being a badass entrepreneur. Yeah, so yeah, that's how we met. Like, yeah, year and a half ago.
Hmm. What have you learned from her? I'm sure you learned a lot of things, but one of the most
I
important
think I
things.
learned a lot of the business side of things, how brands work, I went to like plenty of meetings with her, kind of how to like sell yourself, not in a way like, or kind of how to portray like a personal brand. I think quite a lot of things that I found quite important. And like I did a couple of speaking events last year. I
Hmm.
spoke at VidCon. She helped a lot with that because I'd seen a couple of her talks as well. So it was learning how to sort of, I guess, engage an audience, keep them like actually in person, and give like a really good talk.
Hmm. So what are your goals this year? I know you really want to create amazing like really good content, like higher quality in a way, maybe not necessarily daily. Um, but do you have things that are specific this
Yeah,
year?
I kind of want to move more into, I'm experimenting more with like actually using cameras now, going, I guess, backwards to everyone else.
Hmm.
In the sense of starting on a phone, and then I want to get into more traditional filmmaking using the Sony cameras and stuff. And I've been shooting stories on them recently. But I want to really get into making sort of like short shows or maybe documentaries, but in like a vertical context. Like, so how Snapchat have their like they have like shows, they have like TV shows essentially that play for
Yeah.
like 48 hours. Um, that sort of content, talking really is something that I want to jump into more in this world. I feel like the vertical space is only really just taking off with
Totally.
stories. I feel like there's so much room to play there. And I feel like, I guess I kind of know how to like use that quite well. So just developing those skills, and like learning more the traditional filmmaking skills, um,
Hmm.
than sort of just this short form content.
Hmm.
So very much video focused, content driven, and just like developing the skills like I've got and just seeing how I can improve and make them even better.
Hmm. It's interesting, the whole vertical versus like anamorphic that is over like
Mm.
100 years old now in a way that
Yeah.
and what do you but yet we are very much mobile first now. We're holding our phones like this and we're seeing the people's pictures this way a lot, and it it's weird. I'm even thinking I'm annoyed when people say rotate your phone, like to
Yeah,
watch on
yeah, yeah.
Instagram or Snapchat, the video that
Uh,
was produced. And
yeah.
I'm like, really? Um,
One of the biggest sins I think on Snapchat is like shooting horizontally. Oh, I hate it.
mhm. So like this is like a whole new world that we're in. And so what are the like talk about vertical filmmaking for a moment. Like
Okay.
clear seems like there's like limitations in one way too, because you have this sort of the problem is you have this high sky or you
Yeah.
have like a lot of the floor in your
Hmm.
and then you can't see much of the horizon unless you pan. So
Yeah. So, I mean, I always just took them as like originally I was like, oh, well, how do I get like a nice time lapse of this beach? Like I'm just stuck to this 1 degree, and I kind of like that. It felt it taught me other ways to view the world through like this lens. Now, if I'm shooting on my camera, I never kind of turn my phone on my phone, so I never turn it horizontal. I'm just stuck in this vertical format. Um, but the things I learned quickly as well is especially on stories. If so, you say you have this big, beautiful like ocean view, like and the sun is setting, and
uh-huh.
you want to get this nice time lapse, or like if you're doing it anamorphic, like in a film, you'd have like this flyover drone shot, really slow, like a Christopher Nolan style thing. It looks beautiful in film. If you do that on a story and you go on for 20 seconds of that, like vertically, I'm bored. I'm gonna turn off because
Mhm.
on the vertical platform, what I found the most is when people watch your stories, people's attention is so low. You want to keep people's attention. It's
Mm.
always got to be fast and upbeat. So if I want to cover multiple things and I can only see stuff through this vertical lens, I keep my shots to like maximum 3 seconds per angle. I'll
Mhm.
like, okay, well, I'll get an angle here, I'll move here, and then I'll move the other one here, and I'll link it together with music, and you get to kind of see the broader picture of where I am. So I think it's just more adapting to the lens and working around it, and then um, doing it in a way that's going to keep people's sort of attention. If, for example, on Instagram, you know the little dots you get across the top of the screen and it show you how many like snaps there are. If
Mhm.
they're like tiny and I see like 40, I'm like, am I gonna watch all of this because this is so long?
Uh-huh.
I try to want to keep the story as short as possible. All those scenes, you could show me a lot of travel accounts do this, and I tell them they're at the top of like I don't know, like somewhere in the Swiss Alps, and they're panning this incredible like view, right? But if it's a 10-second snap of just a view, I'm like, I'm already bored. Within like 2 seconds, I skip.
Yeah.
But if you do it from a bunch of different angles and you show, add some music, show the people who are there, show the first person experience, I'm more interested. I'm watching it through like your eyes. I'm like, I feel like I'm there with you. So vertical filmmaking, I very much is so like you got to adapt to the platform and how the user is using
Hmm. So, like, maybe the brain is doing something that makes it more like three-dimensional or something. So you got that long panoramic view vertically doesn't
it.
really do much for you because we're used to
Yeah.
seeing it in wide angle anamorphic style.
Yeah.
But if you see all these different angles, maybe
Mm.
the brain does like puts it all together and can sort of get the feeling of the big wide beach thingy with by something magical that happens that you're not showing them, but you've seen all these angles and we know what a beach looks like. We know what a
Yeah.
sunset looks like in
So you
California
can put it together in like your head.
in
Yeah.
your head in a way that makes it
Mm.
interesting, fascinating.
That's definitely like the approach I try to take with it. Um, I love cinema so much and watching these films. Like I was watching, I think it was a new Blade Runner film, and I was just like, cinematography is incredible. These shots are like amazing, but like it just that wouldn't work on stories. So you kind of act differently with it. And like you said, I think it's kind of like your brain puts together this picture from all these different shots.
Yeah. Um, so man, it's such an interesting time that we're living in right now with vertical stories. And
Mm.
and man, it's just I'm so excited to see where it goes and where the programs and where we're headed, and how like basically the old media is transitioning into like now YouTube, and Netflix is producing their own
Yeah.
things. Hulu is producing their own things, and I can see Instagram and Snapchat also basically new media is basically taking
Hmm.
over, and that so it's a fascinating time to be at, and it's great because you're on the cutting edge of it, man. So that's great. You're like the next Steven Spielberg, man, and I'm talking to you now.
Oh no,
Gosh, it's
no.
crazy here.
No, but it will be interesting to see YouTubers and content creators in this world if they move into films, and how it will affect film going forward. I find that really fascinating.
Yeah. Um, so let me see. I'm wrapping up here because I've sort of like all the research I did yesterday of the questions that I thought about asking. I wanted to make sure that I kind of got all that stuff here, and now we've
Right.
gone through everything, I think. But and so there was something that I just forgot. I just forgot about it. What it was.
Just left your brain.
God. Um, what would you say to somebody who's well, wants to, let's just say, wants to grow their Instagram or Snapchat accounts? Would you just say that they should just do the thing that they're passionate about and just do it like every day, and um don't worry about the followers or the money, just do it for the art? Because you're like just a creator and a creative, and I think that's part of it too. I just see how creative you are. It's in you, it's in your DNA.
Yeah, I feel like if you fixate on the numbers in the views, it's gonna kind of wear you down. And if that's why you're doing it, I feel like maybe you're doing it for the wrong reason. I can only talk for like how I got into it myself, but I was making these stories because I always wanted to, I always liked film, and then I decided I wanted to document and make my own films. And but I wanted to try it on stories because all I had was a phone. So I tried that platform, and I was like, oh, these are kind of cool. And I was kind of doing it for myself. And then people started watching and people started viewing. But I feel like I haven't changed my perspective on how I feel about making those stories, even after lots of people started watching. And I think maybe the reason people enjoy it and watch is because I am kind of just being myself. I say a lot, I feel like Snapchat is like therapy for me. Like
Mhm.
I will have my phone, I'm in a location, and like New York, for example, is like my favorite place on earth. And when I'm back going next week, I'm sure I'm gonna like talk a lot about being there and my feelings about it. And I feel like on
Mhm.
Snapchat, that's the place I talk about it the most. And it's weird because it's to like thousands of people about this. But
Yeah.
I think it comes across that it's quite genuine. In I think people understand they like watching these travel videos that I do because it's just from my perspective and what I enjoy about them. So they get that kind of realness. And I feel like if you end up doing stuff just for views, or you're following a trend in particular just to try and bump views or something, it can perhaps come across as not genuine. And also, if it's something you really enjoy and you're doing it, you're going to continue doing it. If I started,
Yeah.
I don't know, making videos about, let's say, like sports cars were like a huge topic on YouTube or Instagram right now, I could post all these photos about them, but like that doesn't necessarily interest me that much. So I'm not going to put my heart and soul into it.
Yeah.
So I feel like, yeah, really just doing what you love is like key, and you're gonna know the most about that topic in particular.
Hmm. Sometimes the simplest things are the truth. Do what you love, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, simple.
exactly. And like the fact that I can do this like is like my job,
Hmm.
is incredible. Like I just get to
What a
wake up and
great time to be
do the thing.
alive. Yeah.
Exactly, and it's now we're in the age where everyone can essentially do that with the
That's right.
internet. I don't think we've been in a better time for it. I feel like
Right.
a lot of I guess like my parents' generation,
Hmm.
freelancing or being self-employed is quite is an odd thing to them, or they know some people that do it, and I know that my parents were, before I started doing it, very skeptical of that sort of world, and like, oh, how do you pay your rent doing this? You don't have like a company backing you. But now, like, so many of my creative friends are self-employed and doing like amazing things,
Beautiful.
just because of the internet, you know.
Yeah, the internet, the great democratizer and of everything. Well,
Oh yeah.
I thought of my questions, my
Oh yeah.
last two. So sometimes, number one, this is a quick and easy one. I've noticed that your camera is like set away someplace. It seems like there's a lot of people and it's like on the ground and you're filming yourself. And I'm like, gosh, I would hate for my equipment to be like, just walk away or someone grabs it or trips over
Yeah.
something like that. I'm like, how does he do that and trust that people? Like,
I get that so many times. In my head, it's like, oh, this shot's gonna look good. So no matter what you do, you get the shot. I haven't had it stolen. I should. I'm always kind of have my eye on it. I
uh-huh.
was in Barcelona last year, and my friend texted me, and she was like, "Whatever you do, do not put your phone on the ground and walk away from it. Just don't, because it will go missing." So I kind of hold back in some places,
I
but
see.
if it gets the shot, then I'm up for it.
A true creative. And then the other thing is that I feel awkward. And I don't know if at the beginning when you did started, like when I'm like walking around, like doing this, and
Yeah.
especially when there's a bunch of crowds in like, like a city where it'd be like a cool shot. And maybe again,
Mhm.
that's the key is that you do it because you're creative and you just don't give a damn about what other people are looking at you because you
Yeah.
look like I'm thinking to myself and I'm a bit self-conscious that I would have like what are people perceiving about me that I'm this like odd duck that's walking around like
Yeah.
talking into the camera. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling and
Oh yeah. Totally. I had it so much. I remember when I started doing this and like I had no one watching, apart from like friends or university friends, and they would message me or they message other people. And I'm like, why is Andy talking to his phone? Like, what is he doing? Talking to this app. And it kind of takes a while. It is a weird thing talking to your camera like all the time. Um, but the way I look at it now is if I'm out in the street and I'm walking along and I'm talking into it and I'm talking to my audience and other people are giving me weird looks and that's making me feel self-conscious, so I'm a bit more like trying to be discreet. I'm like, oh, hey guys, how's it going? Like
yeah.
that, I'm not giving. I don't want to use the word performance because it makes it sound like it's fake, but I'm not portraying my true self, or it's not. I guess like what I'm doing is
hmm
entertainment. It's
hmm
not. It's not the
Authentic.
same to the people. Yeah, it's not authentic if
hmm
to people who are watching. So for me, I'm like these people on the street who are giving me odd looks, who I'm never gonna see them again in my life. But the people who are watching on Snapchat watch me every single day, and I wanna like get the best shot possible for that. Like they're the people who are watching me and talking about me. The guy who walked past me judging me because he thinks I look weird talking to my phone, I don't really care about. Like that's his thing. I love what I do. That doesn't bother me. Just before this podcast, I was outside recording and I was getting maybe a bit too excited about going to New York next week. And I span around and ended the shot. And there was this dude just right behind me, just kind of like looking at me. And I walked off with a bit like, oh God, he saw that. I wonder what he thinks. But then afterwards, I'm like, not going to see him again. Shot looked good.
That's true. Yep. I
But
can
it
see that.
is a weird thing. I totally get it. And it took me a while to get used to it. I mean, I even watched stories from a year ago, maybe like January last year. And I'm like, oh, I still don't look as confident as I am.
Mm.
Like now I kind of just like you just embrace it.
Yeah. So you've grown. Yeah. So much.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you so much. I'm just going to mention your handles and stuff. You can find Andy on Snapchat and Facebook. That's Andy Burgess with an extra Y in there, AndyYYBERGESS. All this stuff will be in the show notes too. On Instagram and Twitter on Andy M. Burgess, AndyMBURGESS, and on YouTube at Andy Burgess Stories. There's a lot of S's in there. He's got two S's in his last name and then stories as well. So, but anyway, you can just go to the links and everything like that. Whew,
Gabriel's got it.
it's been so
Yeah.
fun, man. Thank you for
Thank you for
being
having
here.
me. This has
Thank you
been
for
awesome.
sharing, dropping all these knowledge bombs on everybody. It's been awesome. I appreciate it so much. So that wraps it up. Anything else?
Amazing. No, that's awesome. Thanks for having me,
Great.
man. Yeah, looking forward to if anyone jumps over, feel free to say hi, send me a message, say you came over from the podcast. And yeah, it'd be great to talk to you.
Great, man. Thank you so much. And that wraps up another episode of 20 Mile March Podcast. And subscribe and listen, share it with your friend. We appreciate you. We love your listening and your feedback, and we want to make this show better for you. And so anything that we can do for you, always just trying to add as much value as possible and help other marketers, entrepreneurs, storytellers just survive and thrive in this new digital era that we live in. So thank you. Thank you, man.
No worries, man. Bye.
Bye.